So we all know someone whom, when you meet them, they just feel like best friend material. They're non-judgy, they're fun, they're supportive. I don't know. That's the vibe that I get from Leanne Kallal, even though we just met. She is smart, savvy, she's been in the trenches of life, yet her tune is so uniquely her own. She tells you, do it your way, be creative, follow your nudges. Don't succumb to any limiting beliefs about how you can't, how you have to do things the way other people do. No. And Leanne, it turns out, is living proof of this. She's created the Glojo, a podcast and a community where you'll find all the practical tools, wisdom, and goodies that you need to create your own fully personalized practice that uplifts you and uplevels you. So today, she and I talk about what it means to embrace your style and to trust that it'll work. No more imposter syndrome, no more doubts. So let's enter the Glojo with Leanne. Hi, I'm Summer McStravick with FlowDreaming.com, and welcome to this series, Scarcity Thinking Sucks, So Do Limiting Beliefs. So let's dissolve your limited thinking, dump those scarcity thoughts, own your power, and get you back on your feet, reaching for the stars. Over the course of these episodes, you'll hear from some really brilliant minds about ways they pinpoint and blow up limiting beliefs in their specific areas of expertise. So come with me on a journey into your mind and heart, and let's see what we can find in these very enlightening conversations. Hi, Leanne. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really, really well. How are you, Summer?
Beautiful. And as I
Good.
mentioned earlier, I love your beautiful pink top and your pink pictures, and you all go together so well with your podcast setup and everything.
Thank you so much.
Very
It's like these are
beautiful.
my feel good colors. They make me feel good. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, have to sport them and just get the good vibes and the energy going. That's for sure.
that's right. And I'm you're a creative girl like me, so of course we need lots of color and so on. Speaking of, welcome. We're going to talk about limiting beliefs in your world. So I'm really excited to have you kind of sharing with me. You work with entrepreneurs, you work with creatives. Coaches, you work with all kinds of people, but I know one of the things that you emphasize is, hey, if you're a right-brained person, if you're a creative type, you can let yourself be that. And you
Yeah.
don't need to have any scarcity around that, any limiting beliefs about what you can or can't do, or how you should or shouldn't build or make things in your life. So I just want to jump right into that. Tell me about the people you work with. Tell me where they get hung up and what you do about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, and before I get started, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so
Mhm.
honored and so grateful to be a part of this summit. I love what you're doing. And I think the message that you're putting out into the world is just so important now more than ever. So,
Thank
first of
you.
all, just thank you. And then yeah,
Yay.
to woohoo, to share more about, or I guess to expand on what you just said, I have been in the online personal development and spirituality space for the past 11 years. And so I've seen a lot of trends and I've worked with, like you said, a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, creative
Mhm.
people, spiritual people, and healers. And you really start to see trends over time, or I've really started to see trends over time. Um,
Mhm.
and it's like, why does this show up in really successful people and in people who are so talented in their own right? And so, like you said, I am really passionate about supporting the right brain creatives of the world. There are so many of the people that I work with, they have these special gifts, but they don't necessarily fall into the super linear, organized, everything is lined up in this perfect way. And I think that we live in a society that is really built for the left brainers of the world and built for the
Yeah.
people who are super organized and structured. And that can really start to, what can I say? Like it kind of starts to like crush a creative person, or it can start to limit. You can start to feel less than, like you're not
Yeah.
smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not organized enough, you're not focused enough. And so that's a lot of
Mhm.
the limiting beliefs that I see in the people that I work with. And for me, it's important to create a space of acceptance, a space where we are all allowed to be who we are. I say at the Glojo, this isn't a prescription, it's permission. Permission to be your authentic self and to be the true you. And I truly think that something magical starts to happen when we embrace who we are and we start to share our gifts in the world in a way that is authentic to us instead of comparing and trying to do things like other people do. I know I
Mhm.
have one friend who's really successful and we're super opposite. And over the years, I'm like, I need to make my lists like she makes her lists. I need to organize my day like she
Mhm.
organizes her day. And it did not work for me. It honestly, it drained me. And so I'm all about paying attention to what actually lights you up, what works for you, learning to understand your unique way of receiving information, of working, of getting things done, and then creating a system around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, oh, my mind is buzzing with all kinds of questions around this. There seems to be, I think, this limiting belief that when you have a gift and you want to get it into the world, and the first thing you ask yourself is, am I talented enough?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody else is better, but okay, maybe I'll get through that belief and I'll start to say, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
But then you go right into this. Well, now I've got to learn how other people build things, the marketing, the done for you. Um, Somehow I won't be successful unless I
Mhm.
take on or adopt this other person's systems. And if I do adopt their systems, I will be successful. And then they end up going in crazy little rat circles, not being successful, saying, but I'm using the systems. And then again, it goes back to what's wrong with me.
Right.
I wonder, like, how do you break that up? Because you do teach people how to build things, right? Like how to build out courses, how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Have you seen
That's
this?
yeah, that's a really great question. And so, yeah, oh my gosh, I feel like there's a couple of different ways that I could approach this. And so I'll just
Yeah.
start talking and maybe both things will come through.
Okay.
So, I know that I've absolutely been in the position before personally, and I've seen this happen with clients where you get so focused on all of the things that you should do and all of the things that you need to do that you lose the connection to why you're doing something in the first place. And I think that it is so important for us to stay connected with our personal why and the reason why we're doing something, whether it's in life or whether it's in business, taking the time to really, it's almost like your mission statement. And this concept of the reason why was made popular by Simon Sinek in a TED talk years ago. And he has a book called Start with Why. And it's a really powerful concept. And so if you've never heard of this, like I recommend checking his work out because it definitely starts to light something up. I know inside of me, inside of the people that I work with, and it can almost become your North Star. And so when you have that imprinted into what you're working on, it becomes easier to make decisions that are best for you. And so that's what I'll say first of all. And then the second thing is that as you start to create, and I think with creatives, our sweet spot is the creative den. It's this creative, that's all we want to do. We don't want to worry about any of the business stuff. We don't want to worry about any of the technology. We do
Uh-huh.
not want to be bothered with any of that. And when we do start to focus on that, it can be this huge energy suck and this big, almost like it can deflate you. And so I'm definitely an idealist, but I do also like to bring in reality. And so for the creative souls of the world who you're excited to create, my advice is to make sure that you're always incorporating that into your day and into your routine, or maybe it's into your weekly routine. But I know that having some structure is actually key to being able to be successful in getting things done. And I have resisted structure so much over the years. And I have a lot of really creative friends who have equally resisted structure. And we're like, that sucks. Like, that's not a reason why I became an entrepreneur. I want freedom. I want to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And like,
Mhm.
screw this. That's not what I'm here for. But what I've learned over the years is that by not having structure, and my creativity actually didn't flourish. And so it's about creating that container and
Yeah.
creating that safe space for your creativity to really come to life. It's like creating
Mhm.
this virtual, or like maybe it's a playground, like my office, it's kind of my playground. But it's about creating that space for yourself. Maybe it's a certain time of day, certain day of the week. So I want to share that. Then when it comes to the reality part of things, I think that it is really easy to compare, and everybody is selling everything under the moon these days. You have to do this, you have to do this. And I know
Mhm.
personally, as soon as I get sucked up into, I need to do this like this professional, I need to do this like this, and I need to do this like this, it becomes
Mhm.
overwhelming. It becomes confusing. I
Yeah.
start to feel less than. I lose hope. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, my message and my mission is never going to get out there because,
I feel so behind. There's no way I can
yeah,
keep up with all of these 50,000 different things I'm supposed to be doing. Yes.
totally. And I think
Mhm.
that this is something we can all start to feel. And so I'm all about feeling and like feeling good and actually paying attention to, I say what fuels your feel good and what fuels your flow. And I think that it's important to, like, one, don't try to do everything at once. I have tried to do everything at once so many times. I don't know
Oh,
if
what
you
you mean?
have.
You mean keep your podcast going, keep the website renewed, get all the social media down, also run your programs, do your stuff all at once. All at
Yeah,
once.
right?
Uh-huh. So
And
how
so,
do you manage that instead?
y-
Being creative, knowing you want to jump from one thing to the other sometimes,
yeah,
but you also want to put the structure in. Do you plan
yeah.
it out, or
And
how do you figure it out?
yeah, so what I've learned to do is that I always say one and then it ends up being like two or three minimum, but like
Mhm.
one big focus at a time. And so let's say, and I wouldn't count the podcast as a big focus, but there's like the podcast, and then I have the different creative endeavors associated with it. So right now I'm
Yes.
really focusing on having fun with Instagram and really like getting into a good groove there. But of course, I still have ideas for Pinterest and YouTube and blah, 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 blah. And so what I do is now it's like I allow myself time. Like I actually have so many different Google Docs and folders, but it's just sort of my brain dumps. And so if I see something that inspires me for Pinterest, or if I see something that inspires me for YouTube, this is just what's on my mind these days. I just
Mhm.
saved the link and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to get to that. I'll get to that soon.
Yeah.
And I still like to set goals. I think it's important to give ourselves some structure again and to like set those deadlines, be realistic. I think it's really, I think that it's really easy to be unrealistic with goals and expectations, and that can bring us down. And so figuring out like what's actually realistic for you and setting yourself up for success in a way where you can feel positive about the progress you're making. But
Yeah.
for me, it really is identifying those like one to two, maybe three big things that you focus on at once, so that you're not totally depleting yourself. And then I think it's also recognizing that, hey, creativity isn't linear, and I actually don't believe success needs to be linear either. I do believe
Oh,
in the
takeaway
5D,
line from the whole thing here.
right?
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
I don't think it needs to be linear. I think that's
Uh-huh.
very much the old way, or the way we're moving out of.
Mhm.
And I do believe in, I think that it's like if all of a sudden you're inspired by this one thing, doesn't mean to give up everything else. Let yourself
Mhm.
be like, okay, I'm going to give you 30 minutes idea, like speak to me and like take some notes. And so it's getting
Mhm.
playful with it. I think it's giving a voice to the ideas that come through, but not letting that become your main thing, like shiny object syndrome. Like it's like enjoy the shiny object and you can table it for the future and then see how it's going to play into what you're already doing.
What I'm hearing from you is that it's almost like we need to find what is our most natural way to
Yeah.
work and do that. And maybe also contain yourself to just one or two big focuses at a time so you don't get completely spread out.
Yeah.
I
That's,
mean,
yeah.
right?
Well,
Learning how you work is the very first thing before you even
yes.
build the thing. You need to know how
Yes.
you operate
Yeah.
best.
Thank you
Mhm.
for summarizing it.
Uh-huh.
Summarizing it up so wonderfully.
Mhm.
Yes, it's all about finding out what's true for you. And so I've
Right.
shared more of the process of what I've gone through and what's true for me. And so it
Right.
really is starting to pay attention to to your work patterns, to your workflow. I'll share.
Yeah.
I know when I'm doing a deeply creative project, there might be a week where I seem very unproductive. And I used to
Mm.
let this really stress me out.
Okay.
Now I trust the process. I know that sometimes there's going to be that lull before there's the big creative breakthrough that I have with a client or
Yeah.
so it's like it's really about learning your patterns and what's true for you and how you can feel good and create and be focused and stop comparing yourself to everyone.
Yeah.
Comparison is such like to me that's a huge limiting belief. It's a huge scarcity. It's
Yeah.
like stop comparing.
Do you remember when the 4 Hour Work Week came out, that book?
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, how am I going to twist my pretzel into a 4 hour work week? I can't even do a 4 hour work day. And then I realized, yeah, that's not my thing. It's just that's
Yeah.
not going to be my thing.
Yeah.
And I'll just share a couple things that I've
Yes,
realized about
please.
myself.
Yes, I'd love to
Um,
hear.
my most creative stuff has to happen first thing in the morning. Like that's where
Yeah.
the writing has to happen. My emails, if I'm going to record something,
Mhm.
has to happen first thing. The other stuff happens later in the day. And there's a concept I didn't make it up. I forget who did. I'm so sorry, but it's called creative time and executive time.
Ooh, I
And
love
once I
that.
learned this, it blew my mind. And I
Right.
realized that there's creative time, which for me has to be scheduled in big blocks. I can't do it in 30-minute segments.
Mhm.
I have to stretch out into it. And then executive time is when I shift and only do those executive y type things. I answer email, I look over finances, I,
Mhm.
play with my Google Docs and schedules. And in the past, I would sort of try to bounce between the two. And I do one for half an hour and another for an hour. And I was ineffective at both. So I realized my particular thing is to understand I have these two different beats in me.
Right.
Which beat am I going to be in? And that's one of the
Yeah.
ways that I've sort of navigated through this.
I
So
love it.
I
That's
hope
a
that
real
helps.
thank you for sharing. That's super, super helpful. And I'm gonna start, I'm
Hmm.
actually, and I love time blocking. So you touched on the concept of time blocking, and that's such a
Yeah.
powerful, it's a really powerful tool for being able to manage multiple projects or work with multiple clients.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I love the concept of having creative time and executive time. So thank you. That's
You're welcome.
and I'll also say too, I'm being reminded of this one interview that I did recently where we talk about being a right brainer and a left brainer and the concept of being a whole brainer. And so, even though I'm an advocate for the right brain, souls of the world, and I really do want us to have a place to shine, I do believe like we need both to be successful. And so, and for a while, I was like, oh, the left brain, it's to this and that. And it's like, no, actually, that's both sides are available to all of us. And you can do certain things to start to activate and harness it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're left brain and you're listening to this and you want more creativity, like start to set the intention to let that side of you flourish and vice versa as well.
Yeah. It sounds like one of the biggest limiting beliefs here that we are taking apart, to just bring it back to that,
Yeah.
is I have to do it someone else's way to be successful. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes we get into that because we have a lack of trust in our own way.
Yeah.
So it's easier to go adopt someone else who already is successful and say, I'll take your way instead because it's a so called proven model. And I get not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's that lack of inner assurance. Like I can find my own beat. I can find my own rhythm, my own voice, my own audience, my own way of doing things that gets lost and
Yeah.
can sort of catapult you into all these other people's ways of doing things, which aren't even your best.
I
But it's a
know.
belief that sends you there. Like I can't do it
Yeah.
my own way. I think that's the core. I can't do it my own way. It won't be successful.
Yeah.
So how do you work when you hear that in one of your clients? Like what is the very first thing you sit down and do with them?
Yeah. So the very first I guess there's a couple of things that come to mind. The very first thing that I just want to say right now, it's related. It's not exactly what you were
Mhm.
talking about, but this is such a huge trend, and I actually think that this thing
Mm.
is sort of the overarching. It's almost
Mhm.
like the rain cloud that keeps us
Yeah.
stuck in believing that we can't trust ourselves and we have to do it another way, and that is the imposter syndrome. This
Mhm.
is huge. It's rampant. I know I've heard about it years ago, but it seems to be making this huge comeback. And maybe it's because I've started talking about it more. So it's like
Mhm.
my my system is set to see this. But so many of the people that I talk to, interview, and work with experience imposter syndrome. And what that means is that you truly feel like you are not good enough to do something. You're not smart enough. You're not certified enough. You're not expert enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not this, all of the enoughs. And 70% of people are impacted by imposter syndrome, mainly women. And the crazy thing is, these are stats that I'm pulling from an episode that I recorded. But the crazy thing is that the more qualified you are, the more you feel less qualified and the more you feel
Mm.
like an imposter. And so I share this because for whatever reasons, there is this thing that seems to be built into us to not feel good enough and to not trust ourselves and to not trust our truth. And so, one, I think it's just recognizing what's going on and recognizing that we're having these thoughts. Awareness is really that first step to transformation. And when I'm working with clients, a lot of the work I do, it is this like deep one-on-one, and we get into, it really is a creative flow. And I'll say we don't focus a lot on, it's recognizing the limiting beliefs and giving a voice to them. And then it's saying, it's like there's these different parts of us. And so that voice is, or that part of you is trying to protect you. Even that might sound weird, but it's trying to do something positive for you. And so there's certain exercises that I take people through. And it's really about integrating, it's about identifying these different parts and what they're actually trying to how they're trying to help you. And then it's about integrating so that they're not
Mm.
actually running the show or driving the show. And even if you don't know how to do a parts integration and like this deeper sort of NLP work, one of the things you can do is be like, hey, I hear you, thanks for showing up, and you're not driving the car, not today. You can sit in the you can sit in the back seat, not even the passenger seat, you can sit in the back seat, but I am in control, I'm driving. And so parts integration is one of the things that I do with people, and it is really interesting when you start to realize that all of these limiting beliefs and these behaviors that are coming up and holding us back, they actually have a deeper purpose and they are trying to serve us. They just get a little confused. The other thing is, a lot of the work I do is really getting into creative flow and starting to interview people on their message, on what they want to create. And I find that the more you can focus on, again, going back to your why and focusing on the whispers of your soul, what's inside, what's wanting to emerge, what's wanting to come out, when you focus your energy on that, it becomes, it's like you just naturally get into a state of flow and the other things are less important. And then the third thing I'll say is like, I always encourage everyone I work with to just start taking action. It doesn't need to be the big thing. You just start with that baby step. And it could even just be as simple as like, and this might sound crazy and unrelated, but tuning in to like, what do you want for breakfast? What do you want for lunch? What do you want? Like, so it's like, what are you craving, or what do you want to do today? And by doing that, you start to tune into your inner voice. And that's the authentic you. And when you can
Mhm.
learn to first tune into the authentic you, and then when you can learn to actually take action and do what it's guiding you to do, you get, hopefully, usually positive feedback, and a positive feedback loop and cycle begins. And then it's going to be easier to trust that next, it's going to be easier to take that next step in putting yourself out there, in creating the thing, in being more vulnerable, in being more visible. So it's like those little baby steps actually turn into huge transformation over time. And it can start with the simplest thing. It doesn't need to start with this big, I'm going to upheave, like throw, like, blow up my life and do this and do that, or I'm going to do this. It can literally start with like, what do I want to wear today? What's going to make me feel good? What do I want
Yeah.
to eat? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to talk to? And from there, this positive snowball begins.
Yeah. I love that you're speaking into imposter syndrome, just to go back to that for a
Yeah.
second, because it is true. I mean, I 100% agree with you. Even if a person doesn't really think they have quote unquote imposter syndrome, I will hear things like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not an expert. There's someone better than me. It's like these phrases that kind of clue you into,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you know you're good at this, but you're not trusting you're good at this. Like, or
Yeah.
there's some disconnect there. And I'm hearing it through these, and I'm hoping that people who are
Yeah.
listening and watching right now are starting to run through their own things in their head. Like, I'm terrible at social media and I'm supposed to be good. But I'm faking that I'm good. And it's like, wait. Pull back and let's listen to this dialogue that's going on. Because
Mm-hmm.
for me, this becomes interruptive energy,
It
right? It becomes
does.
interruptive energy in your day, in your focus, and your ability to build things. And cleaning this out and getting it gone is how you kind of free things up to really grow and become
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah. Well
yeah,
said.
it's sort of like, yeah, I mean, because sometimes when you say imposter syndrome, people are like, oh, no, I don't have that. But then you're like, look, go closer. Maybe there's something that maybe there's a little bit it's coming through in a phrase or something that you would say.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen that.
it shows up in so many ways, and it is
Yeah.
so sneaky and so unsuspecting.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the biggest trends that I've noticed lately. And so yeah, I always think, I'm like, if we're noticing it here and here and here, like it's usually going on inside too, or in some other way. And so yeah, there's definitely, I think for me, what I find, what's helped me personally, and when I've had conversations and coaching with people, it really is like, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something comforting in that. Like, we're not alone. What you're feeling is actually totally normal. What you're
Yeah.
experiencing is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes that moment of courage to just say, screw it and screw it, let's do it, like Richard Branson's book.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that moment of courage to just say, I'm taking that next step. I'm doing it. And
Yeah.
I think that no matter what, I wrote this, oh, I wish I could remember. It's this amazing quote on Instagram. And it basically talks about, like, we choose our, we'll say, lessons or our challenges or struggles. You can choose to be healthy, or you can choose to be, and it's, I'm not remembering it exactly, but the main thing is that no matter what we choose, there's always going to be something that we have to grow through. And so I
Yes.
know with me, it's like the unknown might seem really scary, but I found, and I know the people that I've worked with, and a lot of my friends, it's a lot more painful staying stuck in the spot where you are thinking about everything you want to do and how you're not
Yes.
good enough, versus taking that step and starting to do it. It might be
Yes.
scary, but you're going to learn a whole other slew of lessons, and you're going to have more things to push through. But when you're taking inspired action that is aligned with your true self,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to feel way better
Yeah,
than just choosing.
100%. Oh God, you're preaching to the choir here. 100%. Um, talking with you, you just have such a like best friend vibe to you. I'm sure. I don't know if anybody tells you that. You're just like a like I. By the way, you've mentioned your podcast. I want to mention your podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
It's called The Glow Joe, and you pointed out it rhymes with dojo. Tell me a
Yes.
little about that.
Yeah.
What you talk about there.
Thank you so much. And so, one, I love that I feel like you have the same best friend vibe, though, and best friend energy. And maybe that's
Yeah.
why we've put in touch and our paths have crossed, because I feel like there's a lot of beautiful conversations and fun things to come. But with the Glow Joe, it's funny because I actually say, like, consider this your best friend on speed dial 24/7. because that's what I want to create and provide. So for me, conversations, I've been very fortunate to have like soul sisters, like deep friendships with many, many people. And then, maybe there's not like those really, really close friendships with a few. And the conversations have gotten me through some really difficult times in my life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I wanted to start a space and create a space where people can come to be a part of these conversations, to feel like they're sitting there drinking wine with us or drinking coffee or being a fly on the wall, so that we can
Yeah.
all heal together. And so the Glojo is based off of the concept of a dojo. And a dojo, if you're listening and you're into martial arts, then you know what a dojo is. And so a dojo is a sacred place of meditation. It's a sacred place of dedication where, and it's very common in like karate, taekwondo, aikido, all of these different things, but it's the place where they would go to practice. And
Mhm.
so I've never been into any of this. And
That's
so it's
funny.
kind of ironic that I was so inspired by it. But I remember when I was young watching my sister play karate in the local like small town dojo, which was the gymnasium. There was nothing fancy about it, but it had a feeling to it. There was this
Mhm.
energy, and it was this energy of dedication, of showing up. And so I thought, hey, why not have a fun, playful online dojo where
Uh-huh.
we have conversations and provide tools and tips to help people really get in tune with that part inside of them and who they are, so that we can all, I don't know, I'm just such a firm believer. We came here to be us. We didn't come here to be anyone else, or like our parents,
Mhm.
our sisters, our best friends, our neighbors, our dogs, like whatever it is. We came here to be us. And for whatever reasons, being us can be really difficult. It's weird. And so I really just want to create a place for people to come to get to know themselves more, to connect with like-minded people, and to
Yeah.
talk about the things that we maybe don't want to talk about or that get brushed aside. So that's what the Glojo podcast and the Glojo community is all about.
That's awesome. And of course, your website, which I also mentioned in the beginning,
Yeah.
theglojo.com. So, speaking of, people want to learn more about the Glojo, and they want to learn more about you and creativity and, finding their own way of doing things. You have something for everybody. You want to share
Yeah.
what that is?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking. So I've created specifically special for this audience. I've created the Feel Good Creatrix kit, and so this is
I love that
bringing
name.
in. I love kind of the playfulness of Creatrix, and I think that it just implies like
Yeah.
some magic to it. And of
Hmm.
course, it's important to like stay aligned. To me, feel good means being aligned with your authentic self, and so I've created a workbook that goes deeper into a lot of the concepts that we talked about here today. So if you're listening and you want to go deeper and really solidify what is your reason why, what are the whispers saying, and what are the next steps that you can take to start to nourish and feed this creative part of you, or just this part of you that wants to be heard, you can go download it at theglojo.com/create 2021, and you can get it for free there.
And if that was too long of a URL for you to remember, there's going to be a link, either along with this video or along with this podcast episode. So thank you.
Awesome.
I love
Yeah.
it. I'm curious. I want to go and grab it myself and figure out. I want to learn more about me. I mean, who doesn't? So thank you. All
Yeah, well,
right,
thank
Leanne.
you. Thank you
Lovely.
again. Yeah, thank you for having me here today. I love what you're doing, and yeah,
Thank
just
you.
very grateful for you and the work you do in the world, and I can't wait to binge on your flow dreaming podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, coming right back at you. Such a pleasure. And I know you and I are going to be talking again.
Yes.
So until next time, I'll say goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye. Have a good one, and thanks everyone.